Hello learners, in the previous lecture we had seen that dicalcium silicate has less resistance to the sulfate attack and other chemicals. This is what we had seen. So we'll try to understand what is the main reason behind this, that why sulfate attack is less in dicalcium silicate compared to other ingredients, right? So the main reason for this is that, give me a minute. Yeah. So what is going to happen actually? The tricalcium silicate, when it reacts with water, CSH, that is the tobermoline gel, is formed. Along with that, calcium hydroxide is also formed and heat is also evolved. In the same way, when the dicalcium silicate reacts with water, again CSH gel is formed. Along with that, calcium hydroxide is formed, and along with that, heat is also evolved. So the problem is that, see, here we have C3S, that is three times we have C, that is lime content is more here. In the same way, here we have C2S. Here it is C2, here it is C3. So if its lime content is more, then what is going to happen? More amount of calcium hydroxide is going to get formed here. In the same way, here dicalcium silicate amount is less in comparison to C3S. That means less amount of calcium hydroxide is going to form. If less amount of calcium hydroxide is going to form, then what is going to happen? This the resist Here what will happen? The sulfate attack chances is less in C2S in comparison to the C3S. That is the reason what I have written is, in case of C3S, that is in tricalcium silicate, more amount of calcium hydroxide will be released. As a result of that, here the chances of sulfate attack is more, whereas here the chances of sulfate attack is less because less amount of calcium hydroxide is released, right? Yeah. So now the question is that what are the advantages of this calcium hydroxide? So whatever this calcium hydroxide is, you can see it here, it has got its own advantages as well as disadvantages. So first we'll try to see what is the advantages of that. The first is that the moment this calcium hydroxide is formed, the pH of the concrete is what we have, it will be around somewhere close to 13, and we know that 13 is alkaline in nature. And if it is alkaline in nature, then whatever corrosion of a rebar or the steel is not going to happen. See, we have a pH scale, right? We have a pH scale from 1 to 14, right? And if it is from 1 to 7, yeah, if it is 1, it is from 1 to 6, we call this as acidic in nature. And if it is from 8 to 14, then we call this as alkaline in nature, whereas 7 is what we call as neutral, right? 7 is a neutral, right? The pH of the water will be usually in between 6 to 7, 6 to 7, or sometimes even 7.5. This is the normal pH of a water. So when you try to add all these things, and when the concrete is formed, the pH of a concrete will go somewhere close to 13, and this 13 falls under the alkaline nature. And if it is alkaline nature, then what is going to happen? We are going to put in RCC, that is reinforced cement concrete. In RCC, we are going to put concrete plus we'll be having a rebar into that, right? The steel is going to have, we are going to put the steel. So since this entire mixture is going to be in alkaline of pH of 13, then the corrosion of the rebar is not going to happen. So this is one advantage of calcium hydroxide. So along with that, this has got certain disadvantages also. So we'll try to see what are the disadvantages of this calcium hydroxide. So this calcium hydroxide, what is formed? No, it again reacts with sulfate, and again we know that this sulfate can be internal or also from external. If it is external, it can be from the soil or it can be from the surrounding sewer and all. And if it is internal, it will be inside the cement only, right? So what is going to happen? Again, this calcium hydroxide will make friendship with sulfate, and as a result of that, again, what is going to happen? Calcium sulfate is going to get formed, and this again leads to the sulfate attack. So we don't want the sulfate attack to happen again. So that's the first point. Second thing is that the second disadvantage is that the calcium hydroxide what we have, no, it leaches on the concrete surface and it makes the concrete porous. So what is this leaching? We'll try to see that, and how the concrete porous, how the concrete is going to get porous. So if you see it here, see, this is something called leaching. What will happen? It's a kind of a spalling here. What has happened? Whatever concrete surface you had, no, it has gone, I mean, it has spalled from there. And what has happened? This rebar has come in contact with the atmosphere, and as a result of that, what is going to what has happened here? There's a corrosion in the rebar. So this corrosion in the rebar has happened because there was a leaching of the concrete. So you can see this is how it's going to happen. So whatever this calcium hydroxide we have, no, it will come on the surface of the concrete, and once if it comes on the concrete surface of the concrete, what is going to happen? This will make the concrete porous. The porous means what is going to happen? You will not have a cement paste and all. It will be a kind of a hollow. So as a result of that, water will try to pass through that, and also this rebar will be exposed to the atmosphere. So these are the problems that is going to happen. So that is why this calcium hydroxide, I don't want this calcium hydroxide to form. So what is the alternative to that, right? We have understood that these are the disadvantages of calcium hydroxide. Now this calcium hydroxide will make the concrete porous, and also what it's going to do, it's also going to do the leaching on the concrete. So we need to do something to this, right? So this calcium hydroxide, what we have, it is having so much of attitude now that no one can defeat me. I can make this concrete, more porous and all. So this is a kind of a nature. Yeah, give me a minute. So this is a kind of a nature of a calcium hydroxide. But at the end of the day, we all are civil engineers. So we need to think something where we can, take this, take the attitude of this calcium hydroxide out. So what we are going to do at the end of the day, we all are civil engineers. So we did a lot of research, and finally we made a deal. We made a plan with someone and told him that this is a problem what calcium hydroxide is creating, and you need to save to us. And we did a secret meeting with that guy, and finally we found a conclusion. There is someone who can help us in dying out the attitude of this calcium hydroxide, because if we know that if calcium hydroxide is not taken out from this reaction, it's going to get react with sulfate, and again it's going to create the sulfate attack. And I don't want that sulfate attack to happen. So who is that person who is going to come and save us? So the name of that person what we have is called as pozzolana. So to reduce the calcium hydroxide attack, we use something called as pozzolana. So what is this pozzolana? So this pozzolana, they have a binding properties. That means pozzolana are the materials primarily which is not behaving like a binder. They are not actually binder, but when it is mixed with the cement, it starts behaving like a binder because of its pozzolanic action. So we are not still understood what this pozzolana is all about. So we'll try to understand them. See, this is how a pozzolana is. So alone, a pozzolana cannot do anything, right? If you look into this sentence, pozzolana, the materials primary, which is not behaving like a binder. Alone, it cannot act like a binder. It cannot do anything. It is something like this person. Alone, he is feeling sad and he cannot do anything. But when it is mixed with cement, but when this pozzolana, no, this guy, that is a pozzolana, when it is mixed with the cement, it will start behaving like a binder. And we want, ultimately what we want the binding of a cement, right? So what is going to happen, let me show it. So this pozzolana along with the cement, if you try to mix, there is something happening, and that is called as pozzolanic action. So in the next slide we'll try to see what actually this pozzolana does. So once you add this pozzolana into the cement, the guy who was having lot of attitude, that is the calcium hydroxide, some reaction is going to happen in between that, and we are going to get benefited out of that, and we'll try to see what benefit we are going to get out of that. So yeah, give me a minute. Yeah. So what will happen? This pozzolana, they're actually siliceous in nature. They try to react with calcium hydroxide because this calcium hydroxide is the one which is creating us a problem, right? So what we did, we added the pozzolana. So this pozzolana will try to react with calcium hydroxide, and in turn, what is happening? We are again getting CSH gel, and we know that the CSH gel is giving us the binding property, right? So the guy who was troubling us, we added pozzolana into that, and finally what we found is that we are still getting more and more amount of gel. And if we are getting more gel, then what is going to happen, we ourselves are getting benefited, right? Because if there is a CSA gel formation, there is a pozzolanic action. And if there is a pozzolanic action, what is going to happen, this CSA gel are responsible for the strength of the cement, and also they are responsible for the cementing property of the cement. So in this way, this pozzolana is going to help us in producing more and more CSA gel, which actually gives more strength and more cementing property to the cement, right? Yeah. So actually what is going to happen, see, let us say I want to, yeah, go one step. Yeah. Let let us say I want to make some 100 kg of CSA gel. Okay. Just I'm taking some random example. I want to prepare 100 kg of CSH gel. Then how do you prepare this CSH gel? So who is responsible? Forget about pozzolana for time being. So this CSH gel can be given by this reaction. This is one reaction, and this is my second reaction. Only these two people can give me this CSH gel, right? Now let us say initially I'm putting some 70 kg of C3S and 30 kg of C2S, random numbers I'm taking, and this together 70 plus 30 is going to give me 100 kg of CSH gel, right? Now what I'm going to do, now what I'm going to do, instead of taking 100 kg of CSH gel from these two people, I'll try to add pozzolana into this. Now what is going to happen by adding pozzolana, we'll try to see that. So what is going to happen now by providing pozzolana? Now again, let us say I want again another 100 kg of CSH gel. Okay, I require 100 only. This time what I'm going to do, I'll make use of only 60 kg of CSH gel from C3S reaction. That is C3S will react with water and gives us CS gel. Let us say it's going to give me 60 kg of CSH gel. Similarly, I'll make use of C2S and I'll make it to react with water, and again it's going to give me around 20 kg of CSH gel. And who is going to give me another 20, because altogether I require 100. 60 plus 20, 80 is done. Another 20 kg of a CSH gel I'm going to take it from this particular person called as pozzolana. So this pozzolana, I'm going to put 20 kg of pozzolana. So this pozzolana will react with calcium hydroxide and I'm going to get this another CSH gel, and this CSH gel what I'm getting, no, let us say I'm getting 20 kg. So what I have done basically, I wanted the same amount of CSH gel that I have got. But what I have done the reduction of the C3S and the C2S content, right? So finally, what I have done? Finally, what I have done by making use of pozzolana, I actually tried to reduce the consumption of the steel, consumption of the cement. And what is going to happen if you do the if you reduce the consumption of the cement? That will try to see, right? So cementing property will be same. Let me try to take out everything. Yeah. So now what happened? I wanted 100 CSH gel. By putting this C3S and C2S, even then I'm getting 100. But if I try to reduce C3S and C2S, and if I try to add pozzolana into that, even then also I'm getting 100 kg of CSH gel. That means the cementing property is same both the in both the case. And if the cementing property is same, but what will happen? Less consumption of cement is going to happen if I add pozzolana. The cement that I'm going to use, that is C3S and C2S content is going to come down. If this content is going to come down, what is going to happen? The production will be less, right? The cement production is going to be less. And if the cement production is going to be less, what is going to happen? Less amount of carbon dioxide is emitted. And how the carbon dioxide is emitted? Because if you look into the, this is limestone. When you try to heat the limestone during the calcination, we get lime and we get carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is responsible for the emission in the atmosphere. So if you want to reduce this, what we have to do, we need to do the less production of the cement. And if less production of the cement will happen when the consumption is less. And how do we do that? By adding pozzolana, we are indirectly making less consumption of cement. That means production of the cement will be less, and as a result of that there's a less carbon dioxide emission, and we are making a more eco-friendly cement. So in this way we can make use of pozzolana, right? Yeah. Now moving forward, so these are the few things that you observe in the newspaper nowadays. So what is happening? See, reducing the carbon footprint in the cement production is essential for carbon neutrality. In the same way, you can see it here. The production of cement, the binding element in the concrete, accounted for 7% of total global carbon dioxide emission in 2018. Right. So there are a lot of researches going on everywhere where we actually want to reduce the carbon dioxide, right? Because the main carbon dioxide is emitted from the cement industry. So now we need to think something beyond, I mean out of the box, where we can actually reduce the consumption of the cement. Because of urbanization there's a lot of construction happening everywhere. So directly you cannot stop the production of the cement, but you have to find some other alternative to that, so that whatever emission we are making, that is the carbon dioxide emission that we are making, we need to stop that, right? So in this way there are a lot of researches going on, and you can see it here as well. Yeah, yeah, give me a minute. There's a, yeah. So you can see it here. Industrial byproducts such as iron slag, coal fly ash, are now frequently used to reduce the amount of cement needed. And these products themselves are called as pozzolonas. So we'll try to see them in a more better way, what actually the pozzolana do, right? Yeah. So to reduce the quantity of the calcium hydroxide, see, we all started from calcium hydroxide because this calcium hydroxide was creating us a problem. In order to solve this problem, we tried to make a friendship with someone called as pozzolana, and this pozzolana came and it reacted with calcium hydroxide, and then it gave us CSH gel. So this CSH gel, what we got now, it's actually helping us in improving the cementing property of the cement, and along with that, it also helping us in making a eco-friendly construction, by reducing the production of the cement, and also by reducing the emission of the carbon dioxide, right? And to overcome its bad effect by converting it into cementitious product, blending materials such as fly ash, silica fume, and such other pozzolanic materials are added to the concrete. So you can see fly ash. So this is a fly ash what we have. This is called as GGBS. Again, this is how the fly ash is available in the market. Then we have silica fume. Again, this is obtained from the silica industry. Again, this is GGBS. It is called as ground granulated blast furnace slag, and this is how it is obtained. So if you want fly ash, you have to go to the coal industry, and yeah, give me a minute. And if you go to the coal industry during the manufacturing of the iron scrap iron ore, you're going to get that. During the manufacture of, if you want to find GGBS, no, that is ground granulated blast furnace slag, you have to go to the iron industry, and in the iron industry you get that blast furnace slag. So this slag, which is a byproduct of this industry, we are making use of that. So they actually don't have any property in that. But when you try to mix this GGBS, the fly ash, into the cement, no, then that cementitious property is going to come. Similarly, if you want to find fly ash, you have to go to the coal power plant. So this is how a power plant is, and there the byproduct that you're going to get is called as fly ash, and this is how a fly ash is obtained. You can see to the fly ash recovery and dispose. They're very fine in nature. They're actually a waste product for the coal industry, but for the civil engineering people, it's going to help us a lot. So that is why we make use of all these things, and we try to put this into the cement, and we have seen what is the effect that is created by all this pozzolana. So all these materials what we see, they are called as pozzolanas. So every material what we have, they react with this calcium hydroxide, and they are going to give us the cementing property, right? Yeah. So with this understanding, we'll try to go forward again. Yeah. Now coming to the advantages of this. What all are the advantages of using this pozzolana? The first is it is economical, that we already seen, because if you don't use pozzolana, you should be using more amount of cement. And let us say the CSH gel that you're getting is same. But by adding pozzolana, you're actually getting the same amount of CSH gel, but over that you're reducing the consumption of the cement, has, and obviously it becomes economical. First thing. Second thing is that the raw materials that we are using, that is a byproduct like fly ash, GGBS, they're very less in cost. That means, let us say, the cost of the cement nowadays is, let us say, 7 or 8 rupees per kg. Okay, let us say it is 7 or 8 rupees per kg. Okay, per kg. And if you want to take that 50 kg bag, the entire 50 kg bag, it is somewhere close to 350 rupees or 360 rupees. But whereas this fly ash what you have, no, this fly ash, usually if you have a plant very close to your place, then you're going to get it for free. Only the thing is you have to give them the transportation cost. But just in case if you want to take it also, it won't be more than 2 or 3 rupees per kg. 2 or 3 rupees max to max, that is a cost. And similarly, if you go to GGBS, this GGBS is also free. If you go to big industries, they are going to give it for free only. But nowadays, since they are finding applications everywhere, even these people are using their brain, and they're not going to give it for free. They're also going to charge a minimum. Even that is also like 3 to 4 rupees. Right now, the price might have increased, but it is not as costly as cement. Cement is like 7 to 8 rupees, but this is less than 2, 3, or 4 rupees. That's it. Two is very less. I feel 3 or 4 rupees. Fly ash maybe 3 rupees, whereas GGBS maybe in between 3 to 4 rupees, right? Yeah. So what has happened? The cost is also less, so it becomes economical. The second is eco-friendly. Okay, it is eco-friendly because what will happen? Carbon dioxide emission is less by using this material. So what is going to happen? It is eco-friendly. Third is less heat of hydration. Why less heat of hydration? Because what is happening? C3s amount we are reducing, and we have seen that C3S is giving more heat of hydration. Since tricalcium silicate content itself is less, what will happen? Less heat of hydration is going to happen. And also cement, we are the use of cement is also coming down. So as a result of that, what will happen? Less heat of hydration is going to happen. Next is less shrinkage crack, because they are not going to shrink. There is no shrinkage of that. Why there is no shrinkage of that? Because they are very fine in nature. So there is no change in the volume. As a result of that, there is no shrinkage. So that is reason it has less shrinkage cracks. Next is less chances of sulfate attack. We already seen that we all started from calcium hydroxide, but at the end of the day we got a lot of benefit of using this pozzolana. So whatever free calcium hydroxide was there, it reacted with pozzolana. So since it reacted, the main reason for sulfate attack was calcium hydroxide only. So there is no more calcium hydroxide left. So what is going to happen? There is no sulfate attack only. Next is less voids due to fineness of pozzolana. This pozzolana are very fine very fine. They are even very fine. The particles are very fine, right? So if the particles are very fine, whatever voids we have in the concrete, let us say this is a concrete what I'm taking, this is coarse aggregate what I have, okay, and let me try to put this thing where that is a fly ash and all this fly ash, there since they're very fine, they will try to fill all the voids into this concrete. So if they're able to fill all the voids into the concrete, there won't be any voids. As a result of that, what will happen? There is a good packing between them, the density will improve. As a result of that, what will happen? There is less voids, and due to fineness of the pozzolana. Next is low permeability, again for the very same reason. Since there is less amount of voids, let us say no voids, if there is no voids, there won't be change in the volume and all, so there won't be cracks. So if there is no crack, there is no permeability, I mean there is very less permeability, so there won't be any leakages or passing of water and all. So the permeability is also less. Next is less water penetration. Of course, if you have low permeability, there is less water penetration due to the good interlocking between all these particles and good packing between them, right? Yeah. Now the question is that we have seen all the advantages. So is there no other disadvantages to this pozzolana? There's only one disadvantage, that is the rate of gain of strength will reduce, but the ultimate strength will remain the same. That means initial gain of strength what we require, no, let us say initial 3 days or 7 days strength what we actually require, that is little less when we try to use pozzolana. But the final strength what we are supposed to get, let us say 30 newton per mm square is what we require, or let us say M25 grade, in that 25 newton per mm square is the strength what we require, that you're going to get whether you use pozzolana, you don't use it. But initial strength what you want to get, no, at the end of 3 days or 7 days, that strength you're going to get less. This is one disadvantages. So but even though we have one disadvantage of that, considering all these advantages, no, there are a lot of advantages. So what we try to do, and also keeping environment in mind, because it is giving less carbon dioxide emission and all. So keeping all these advantages in the mind, the cement that we get in the market is called as PPC, that is Portland Pozzolana cement. Anyhow, we'll try to see what are the different types of cement and all in the upcoming lectures. So whatever cement you find in the market, they are called as PPC, that stands for Portland Pozzolana cement, right? So these are the uses of pozzolana, and we have seen why pozzolana we use, because in order to reduce the sulfate attack and all. And also we have seen there are a lot of advantages of using pozzolana. Keeping all these things in mind, we try to make use of PPC cement, right? Yeah. So I hope these things are understood up to here. We'll see you back in the next lecture. Thank you.